Hello, listeners. Been wondering how you can help the show? Probably not. But here are 5 things you can do. 1. Subscribe. Support the show by clicking the subscription link in the show notes. 2. Review on iTunes, on our website, www.afraidofnothingpodcast.com, or on whatever app you listen to. 3. Donate. When you go to our website, click the cute coffee cup icon. Or in the show notes, click the subscription link. 4. Share. Sharing really is caring. Tell your friends and even your enemies to check out the show. 5. Watch. Wait a minute, it's a podcast, not a movie. Actually, it's both. Check the show notes to find out where to watch the documentary. You can also rent it on Prime Video. That's it. Oh, one last thing. Enjoy this episode.
Scare alert. Today's episode features Brandon Alvis from Ghost Hunters. Check out Brandon's new documentary, Cemetery Park, at the Wicked Virtual Film Fest 2020, a 13-hour paranormal marathon on October 30th through October 31st. Bonus! You can also see the Afraid of Nothing documentary too. Buy tickets online at paranormalrewind.com/filmfest. That's paranormalrewind.com/filmfest. Curse bleep and applause sound effects courtesy of SoundJ at soundj.com.
In a world where nothing is known, nothing is certain, reality is not real. Wake up! Be afraid of nothing. I'm Bob Heskey.
Robert.
The host with the ghost.
This is my podcast, based on my paranormal documentary, Afraid of Nothing. Each episode, we talk to people who see life and the afterlife through a different lens. Join me.
Who is this large man? And what's he doing in our bedroom?
As we lift the veil and open our minds to see beyond our eyes lie. This is Afraid of Nothing.
Brandon Alvis has always had a fascination with history. Over the years, he has spoken at historical locations across the United States, appearing in the New York Post, MTV News, Travel Channel, Discovery Channel, Science Channel, and A&E networks. After purchasing a modest camcorder in 2010, Brandon began to produce web content about historical events. Discovering his newly found passion, he wanted to expand his knowledge of the film industry. After the years of self-taught writing, shooting, and editing, Brandon directed his first project, titled Ephemera, in 2017. Upon its release, the project was nominated for 4 awards. Continuing to perfect his filmmaking and storytelling skills, Brandon directed the documentary film Cemetery Park. The film was an instant success and became an official selection of the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. Brandon Alvis has always had interest in questions about the paranormal after tragically losing 2 brothers, one to cancer and the other to suicide. Starting with a few friends using standard tools and procedures, he realized the many mistakes commonly found when investigating the paranormal. This motivated him to propagate a team specializing in many fields and to develop new methods, not only reliable, but convincing. Introducing the scientific approach and naming this team American Paranormal Research Association, aka APRA, this new approach, along with his leadership and entrepreneurial skills, has propelled Brandon to become the paranormal technician of the Ghost Hunters team. Brandon has investigated over 200 public and private locations with APRA, many of which bear historical significance. Investigations have included mental hospitals, prisons, well-known murder sites, cemeteries, and private homes, as well as more famous sites like Alcatraz Island, Preston Castle, and the South Pittsburgh Hospital. As a natural skeptic, Brandon researches every location meticulously before he begins collecting evidence in an effort to make the study of the paranormal as credible as possible. All right, we have a great show tonight. I can tell because we have Brandon Alvis from Ghost Hunters. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Oh, this is awesome. You and I have one thing in common, I found out. We both have a film in Sam Baltrusis's Wicked Virtual Film Fest this October 30th and 31st. And your film is really cool. It's called a documentary called Cemetery Park. And it seems like it's really one man fighting against City Hall with some dark secrets unveiled. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I moved to Ventura, California about 7 years ago, and I moved into the only apartment that I could afford at the time. And it was right next to this place called Cemetery Park. And I always thought it was a very strange name. I didn't understand why it was called Cemetery Park. So I started to look into that. And I found out that this place was a pioneer cemetery that had over 3,000 people buried there. So I started to look into what I thought was an urban legend. And I found out that there was one man fighting against the city. His name was Stephen Schlater. And that there are over 3,000 people buried in what's now a dog park. So I wanted to expose this and talk about the true crime aspect of this film.
That is amazing. I mean, it's almost like you were guided to that cheap apartment. You have a great trailer for this. A little teaser about it. Is it happy ending in this thing, or is it still unresolved? What's the situation?
I'll leave that up to the people that watch the film and see how they feel about it. It's been a long process. I've been working on the film for about 4 years now, and I was lucky enough to get the film into the Santa Barbara International Film Festival and really get this story out there. But again, when I first found out about this story, I had no idea the depth and the complexity associated with this. And not only did I find out very soon that there was a lot of cover up, not only from the city, but the people involved in this process. I've been working on this again for 4 years. And down the line, I found out that there was a lot of very complex situations associated with this. But we're talking about immigrants, pioneers, people that came to this country to make a better life for themselves that have been completely robbed of a very basic fundamental fact, and that is a grave. That was very cherished by these people. They're very religious. A lot of times there's a Jewish section, there's a Protestant section, a Catholic section, a Native American, any kind of person you can imagine from any walk of life is in this place. And every piece of dignity has been robbed from these people. And that includes some of the people involved in the film. So I'll leave that up to people to decide when they see it.
No, it sounds great. I really look forward to seeing it, and I encourage everybody listening to check it out at the Wicked Virtual Film Fest. Is there any other place they can see it, or are you doing the film festival circuit right now?
Just the festival circuit at the moment. So we'll see what happens with it in 2021. But at the moment, we're just going through the festival circuit. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's always fun. I mean, I did that with my first film and even with my second film, Afraid of Nothing, which is on the docket with you. Unfortunately, now it's probably a little tougher to do the film festival circuit because you don't really go there. They're more virtual. Are you finding that the case with your film right now?
Yeah, funny enough, like I had this film finished and at least the festival cut in 2018, and I got it into the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, which is one of the top 5 in the country.
That's a great festival. It's a great festival.
Yeah, and right after that, literally, I was at the festival when I got the call to go on to Ghost Hunters. So I had to put the film on the back burner and really figure out how to handle that later. So that's where I'm at now. So it's a dynamic situation and ever evolving, that's for sure.
Okay, so before we get into ghost stuff, let's keep on the film for a little bit more. Do you have another project, another film that you're working on?
I have some things in the works that I can't announce quite yet, but a few things that I think that are going to be very interesting to the ghost geeks out there and the people involved in the paranormal field. And I have a few true crime documentaries that I'm working on as well. So we'll see what plays out, how it ends in 2021.
Oh, that's great. So is documentary your genre of choice? Will you ever consider doing a feature film at some point?
I love documentary. I'm really a nonfiction guy. It's something I really love and something I'm very passionate about, but you never know. I'm open to anything. I'm always open up to a challenge. So who knows? Who knows what's down the line?
Yeah, I've made both a feature, a drama, and a documentary. And I got to tell you, the documentary was much more satisfying to make because with the drama, you're dealing with actors and SAG and all this stuff. You get people together for 2 weeks and you got to meet a certain schedule and feed them by a certain time. The documentary I could kind of handle on my own terms, and I just found it more satisfying. I love both films, but I really fell in love with the documentary process when I made that. And I love watching documentaries now, too. They're probably my favorite type of genre to watch, even over horror.
Absolutely. It's very difficult actually, because it's like, again, like such a evolving situation that you have to be present at all times to be, ready to go film something, because you never know what's going to happen or how the situation changes moment to moment. So it can be difficult, but it's a challenge I've always loved and a challenge that I look forward to in the future.
Yeah. My takeaway from it, making a drama, a feature, I knew how it ended going in because I wrote the script, right? But with the documentary, it was experimental. I had no idea how it was going to hold together. So that was the kind of big uncertainty about it. And I'm sure you run into that, not just with your documentaries, but whenever you enter these haunted houses on these locations that you go to.
Absolutely. You feel like a history detective in a way, right? You go into a situation, you have to really examine the landscape, really look at the history, really be as unbiased as possible, really, because as soon as you get biased in a situation like that, especially with documentary filmmaking, I think that can really ruin a film and really change the way a film's going to play out. Because if you get emotionally invested and you become this person that's rooting for one side, I think that's going to do a injustice to the film itself.
Yeah, that's so true. You really have to let the story unfold for you. Going to your paranormal side now, look, you had, unfortunately, a tragic loss of two brothers, which sort of propelled you onto your paranormal journey. Do you mind sharing that with our audience?
Yeah, and in 1995, I lost my oldest brother to cancer. 2004, I lost another brother to suicide. And that kind of sent me on my journey into the unexplained, the paranormal, if you will. I was never really having experiences in the paranormal as a kid, or really had a ghostly experience per se. It was about the fact that I had to grow up at a very young age and learn about the possibility of a life after death. And I've always looked into the science side of it. And the science side of it always says, from Einstein and other scientists, say that energy is neither created nor destroyed. And that's something I've always believed in. So my question is, if there are ghosts, if there are entities, whatever you want to call them, if they do exist, are they made up of the energy within ourselves, right? We have neurons firing off in our brain. We're made up of energy as people. Where does that energy go when we die? And does it retain consciousness? That's the question I'm looking for, and something that I continue to look for this day. Every day I look for it. Every day I talk about it. And it's something that's a lifelong journey for me.
I read or heard somewhere about your theory about how ghosts manifest in photon events, and that there are theories that photons contain consciousness. Can you kind of elaborate on that a bit?
Absolutely. So since 2006, I founded the American Paranormal Research Association, and I've been very lucky to consult scientists, medical doctors, engineers, people from various technical industries that can help me remain grounded in scientific principle. And one of those people is Dr. Harry Clore. He's the only person in history to receive 2 PhDs simultaneously in any discipline. And when I approached him, I asked him, I said, if ghosts are real and they exist, from your scientific opinion, how would they manifest? And he threw out the theory of photon events. So I got my hands on what's called an electron multiplying camera, an EMCCD camera, that's used mainly by the digital imaging scientific community to record single photon events. And these are light events. And you talk about the brilliant mathematician, Dr. Penrose, a man that's studied physics and space and everything you can imagine. He believes that photons do retain consciousness. And so I took this camera into a few very reportedly haunted locations and utilized that camera in those spaces. And I collected some very significant footage, which I would consider a breakthrough, right? So not only do we collect photon events in these places where people report to have ghostly phenomena, but I think that if you look at Dr. Penrose and his theory, Dr. Clore's theory, and others' theories, I think that there's something to the mechanics behind the manifestation of what we perceive to be ghosts as photon events.
So that's really cool. You're looking outside of the paranormal field rather than them inventing these spirit boxes or whatever in their living room or their garage. So you actually go to other respected fields and gather the data and get it acknowledged by them for your paranormal research.
Absolutely. Because, we are in a space that is so overrun by entertainment, right? So overrun by these people that have been on television for a decade or more in some instances that are utilizing these devices to make a 42-minute show, right? We understand that. They need to have results to continue their popularity and continue to have results for their financial gain, whatever it may be, whatever you want to call it. But the fact is, if we want to move forward and step out of the shadow of pseudoscience, we have to open ourselves to third-party, speculation, third-party analysis. And if we don't do that, we will never be taken seriously, not only by the public, but the scientific community. And that's something I'm very passionate about.
That's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. What's your methodology? So you've been to over 200 locations, and we'll ask what some of your scariest ones are. Probably questions you've asked a million times, but when you go to a location, is your methodology the same for a prison versus a hospital versus a residential home, or do you just like scope it out and then map out your methodology and take a day or two to figure that out?
My methodology is always the same. That's one thing that this field needs to adapt is ethics, standards, and protocol, right? And methodology as well. Because if we don't adapt that, again, we'll never be taken seriously by not only the scientific community, but the public as well. Because if we want to step out of the shadow of pseudoscience and this whole idea of this public perception of just entertainment, we have to adapt a series of ethics, protocol, and methodology. And for me, I've been very lucky to talk to these various professionals from technical industries that really helped me remain grounded in scientific principle as well as this methodology. And it's the same for me everywhere I go because it's about empirical evidence and factual data. If we don't have empirical evidence and factual data, we don't have anything because it's all entertainment at that point. So that's something I'm very passionate about and something I always want to push forward.
How long does it take you to gather? Because it's you get a spirit box and you play it back like, ooh, there's a voice, How do you deal with gathering data? How long does it take you once you go to a location and you gather the data? How long does it take, afterwards to analyze it and see if you've come up with something?
Well, first off, the spirit box is a complete joke, in my opinion, and something that is completely contaminated by human frequencies, radio frequencies, cell phone frequencies, things of that nature. But for me, outside of the show Ghost Hunters, I've looked at locations and observed locations for over a decade, one of which is the McConaughey Estate in San Lorenzo, California, just outside of Oakland. I've been investigating that location for over 10 years. And that's a place that I'm very passionate about, a place that I have a lot of data associated with. And anytime I collect something from a device that is not made in someone's garage, a device that is not made by someone looking for ghosts or entities, whatever you want to call them, I have to have that looked at by a third party. And that third party has to be from a technical industry, be that a scientist, an engineer, whatever it may be. I have to have that looked at. So to me, this can take years. Many years sometimes. You see the show Ghost Hunters. We go to a location. We're there for probably 5 days at times. We investigate for a number of nights. But that's not the end of the story. That case continues after what you see on television. So it can take a lot of time, a lot of years at times. So, television can be one thing, but an actual case is another.
Now, speaking of spending a lot of time on something, there are different types of ghosts and entities, right? So as you gather your data, there's not one size fits all. And I think you've been working on a classification system for probably like 14, 15 years now. And I think you may be even writing a book on it. Can you talk about how you took the data and how you started creating a classification system and how many categories of paranormal entities or ghosts have you kind of come across so far?
That's exactly right. I've been working on this since 2006. It's been a long process, very long process, a lot of investigation, a lot of hours put into this. So when you go to a zoo, you don't say that you see animals, right? You break it down by classification. You say that you see elephants, lions, polar bears, whatever it may be. The thing about the paranormal field right now is if you go to a location, everyone says, is it haunted or not? What does that mean? How are you proving that? What more information are you giving outside of that? That's something I've been working on for a number of years and something I'm really excited about releasing here in 2021. And I can't wait to show everybody. I can't give too many details about it yet, unfortunately, but something I think that will revolutionize the paranormal field and something I think people will take very seriously.
Oh, that's awesome. No one who's alive today is an expert on death, right? Because you're not dead. You don't know until you die. And there's probably no expert in the paranormal field. So do you think there ever will be with like an approach like yours with a science that actually validates things? Do you actually have a hope or someday there will be scientific proof that validates and we can become somewhat experts on the paranormal and the afterlife?
You're exactly right. There are no experts at all in this field in any way, shape, or form at the moment. But I think with the advancement of technology and with the inclusion of the scientific field, which I hope we get to very soon, if more people in this field take that seriously and actually start to adapt standards, ethics, and protocols, I think we'll get there a lot more quickly than we would otherwise. But I think that one day, in the next 20 to 30 years with the advancement of technology, I think that we can get there. You have exploration of space. You have exploration of the ocean. And most people are saying, oh, with the paranormal, it's not a controlled environment. Space is not a controlled environment. The ocean is not a controlled environment. Neither is the paranormal, because the things that are happening in these two different spaces very well can happen here on our plane. We just have to open our minds, examine that, and really put ourselves in that situation. So I think it's possible, very possible.
Yeah, I'm hopeful because when I did my film, there was at least some type of connection with quantum mechanics and consciousness, at least with some aspects of the scientific field. And I think consciousness, in a way, it's energy, right? It's definitely related to the paranormal. So hopefully they all come together. Do you think religion and science can mesh together, or are they totally two separate things?
I think they can, because if you think about the Catholic religion and Catholicism, the Vatican, the way they handle what they perceive to be possession cases is very scientific in nature, right? So you think about the fact that they go through this very methodical process of not only psychological testing, but scientific testing in order for them to prove what they believe to be a demonic possession. Not that I'm saying demonic possession and the paranormal are one and hand in hand. But I'm just saying, I think that religion can open their minds to that aspect. Especially right now, science is such a hot button issue, right? Everyone knows that, especially right now.
Yeah.
I think there are various religions that do look at science seriously. I think that the Catholic Church, in some instances, do, especially when it comes to possession and whatnot. But I think eventually, that'll be open more so than it is now. And I hope it is. I really do.
Tell us about the American Paranormal Research Association. I think it started your journey and how you did your investigations. Can you talk about that? And I think you've done a lot of investigations with them. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I founded the American Paranormal Research Association in 2006 to solely investigate historical locations throughout the United States. It's based off of the death of my brothers. And it was never really about trying to go out there and debunk hauntings or try and go out and help people. I know that sounds terrible. A lot of paranormal groups out there say they want to go out and help families with terrifying situations, terrifying hauntings and whatnot. But for me, it was more of a personal reason to go out there from a scientific mindset and to try and find empirical evidence and data associated with what we may perceive to be hauntings and ghosts. So that's something I've been doing since 2006. Well over 200 investigations. Some amazing cases and some cases that have been ongoing for over 10 years. So it's been exciting. I'm still investigating with them to this day and working with people like Dr. Harry Clore and other various professionals from technical industries that really help me remain grounded in scientific principle and really trying to find those answers that we're all looking for. It's all about the truth. It's not about proving life after death per se. It's more so about what is the truth? What kind of evidence can we find? Is there a natural side to it? Is there a natural phenomena? Or is there truly some kind of spiritual aspect going on in our everyday life?
It's been 14, 15 years since you started that journey. How have you evolved personally? How has your perspective on the paranormal evolved and changed during that time?
I'm more skeptical than ever, funny enough. The more cases I conduct, the more data I collect, it just raises more questions than answers, really. And I think that's what really keeps me going. I've been lucky enough to have these amazing scientific devices like the EMCCD camera, having these amazing people consulting me in these situations. But I'm not sure. I think that's what keeps me going, and I'm going to continue to do that, hopefully find more answers. And with the advancement of technology, hopefully I'll have more answers and hopefully advance the film in some way.
Yeah, you were recently on Jim Harold's show. I've been on his show, and he was actually had him on this podcast a little while ago. He says the more he learns about the paranormal, the less he knows. So it's kind of what I think you just said there. Evolve along. You are applying scientific data, but it's like there's, the more you look at the universe, the more there's that we only know 4% of it, right? So there's more that's unknown. So it's an evolving, unending mystery in many ways.
Absolutely. You're exactly right. And so they say that space is the final frontier, or if you're Star Trek, by the way. But if you talk about, the ocean, I think that life after death is that next great frontier. I really do. I think that the more we get into this situation, the more we advance in technology, like I mentioned many times in this, I think that we're going to get there. I think that there's going to be a lot of answers, and I think that it's really going to blow people's minds, honestly.
Yeah, wouldn't it be funny if data? Because I'm starting to believe now that there's like a data-driven universe that we live in versus just Big Bang and things happen just out of sheer stupidity that we're here. I almost think it's driven by data, and I almost wonder if the afterlife and like what you're using data to uncover, if there's really a data connection. So I think that's really interesting.
There's something to it for sure, and I've adapted that from the scientific consultants I've spoken to for many, many years. And they've really driven that into my mind. Like, you don't have a case. You don't really have anything unless you're providing data. That's the key here. And unfortunately, you have a lot of these people in the field right now that are watching these shows, which are very terrible, terrible shows. I'm just going to say it straight out. I don't really care. That these shows are completely based off of pseudoscience and entertainment bullshit. Excuse me if I can't cuss, but and they're coming out here and utilizing devices that are going to give them proven results for what they're looking for, right? Spirit boxes, SLS cameras, Alvis, all these things that are built in someone's garage that are going to give them the responses they're looking for to make a 42-minute show that are going to entertain people, and that's it. But if we want to really advance this field, especially not only in the field, but the entertainment side of it, show the methodology, show the protocol, show the process, and open it up to scientific scrutiny. If we do not do that, we're going to be in this horrible, horrible echo chamber that we are in. All of 2020 is a horrible echo chamber. Do we want to continue that process? I think after 2020, that's going to change heavily, and we have to step up and look at the scientific aspect, empirical evidence, data, open ourselves up to scientific scrutiny. That's how we're going to change this field.
I was going to ask you one of my questions. Was there any paranormal show like on the Travel Channel that you like that you're not in? It sounds like there may not be. Is that accurate? Or
no, none.
Okay, there we go.
All right.
That's okay.
I can get on here and be a corporate person and say those things, but it's just the truth. It's the truth. It's such a rinse and repeat situation that you are seeing the same thing over and over again, dressed up with different names. These are the same people we've seen for the past 10 years. They are not providing new or fresh ideas. They're doing the same thing over and over, and their ratings are not reflecting it. So if you want to look at it from an entertainment perspective, go look at the ratings. Go look at the ratings. Their ratings have not changed because they are doing the same thing over and over. I speak to the demographic, the people involved in this field, the people that are just as passionate about it as I am on a daily basis. They want to see something new. They want to see something fresh. I think that the scientific aspect is something that's going to break through and really help people, not only from their own investigation process, but opening up our field to this larger prospect.
Yeah, and get better people in the field as well that are more scientific minded. I'm sure why is because science is an uphill battle proving it, right? And you don't solve that in one episode. Like you said, you're working on some cases for years, so there's time invested into it, and a lot of times the person watching these paranormal shows doesn't have the attention span of that. They just want to get something that excites them and scares them in 45 minutes. So it's just kind of entertainment at that point.
Exactly. But, I think that the majority of the people want something new. You know what I mean? Because I think that they've gotten through those thrills and scares that have been going on for so long, right? So it's like going through some carny attraction where you go through and you sit in this little chair and it takes you through and there's jump scares. But I think that people want something new and something fresh. And something new and something fresh is the scientific advancement and giving factual data. It's not about the fact that science is not the big bad wolf, right? It's not this scary thing that's going to come into the field and tell you everything you believe is gone. It's going to come in and help aid that situation.
Hey, everybody. This is your paranormal podcast pal, Bob Heskey. Every night I like to listen to videos on YouTube. But lately, with COVID, civil unrest, market volatility, politics, conspiracy theories, I just want to tune out. That's why I like Audible. What's Audible, you say? Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audio books, including some great horror and paranormal titles like A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay, If It Bleeds by Stephen King, and The Boatman's Daughter by Andy Davidson.
This place is cursed.
Each month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, access to daily news digests if you actually want to hear the news, as well as guided meditation programs. Hey, we all need a little Zen now and again. And Audible is oh so easy. You can download titles and listen offline, anytime, anywhere, on any device. The app is free and can be installed in your smartphone or tablet. You can even listen across devices without losing your spot. How cool is that? If you can't decide what to listen to, no problem. You can keep your credits for up to a year and binge on your favorite series later on. So, here's the rub. The Afraid of Nothing podcast is stoked to partner with the audio bookworms at Audible to offer you a free 30-day trial membership. Just follow the link in the show notes, audibletrial.com/AON podcast.
Puedes repetir eso, por favor.
That's audibletrial.com/AON, all caps, podcast, lowercase. Full disclosure, I get a commission for everyone who signs up using that URL. But you get to try it for 30 days without a commitment. Using our custom URL doesn't cost you a penny and helps out the show if you do sign up. Nothing scary about that. So escape reality and pick up a book, an audiobook, and listen to what's out there. Go to audibletrial.com/AON podcast after listening to the show. And let's talk about Ghost Hunters, the reboot, because in the 2.0 version, they brought you on. You're the paranormal tech, and you are bringing science and technology to it. So kudos to you. Do you mind telling us how you landed with Ghost Hunter?
It's funny because I received a call and I was asked to speak with Pilgrim Films, which is a great company, people I really admire and respect. I was never really interested on being on television. That's not my thing. I was on Ghost Adventures a few times. I did an episode with the Unexplained Files on Science Channel at one point, but I was never really interested in being a talking head on TV. It was never really my thing. And they reached out to me and we spoke, and they were looking for someone that was very scientific minded. And I came down to LA and was around that process for about 5 days. I met with Pilgrim Films and A&E, and they talked about how they wanted someone very scientific minded, someone that was going to come in here and scrutinize the process. And that's something I do very well. So in order for me to be involved in that process, I told them, are you going to allow me to conduct the same research I've conducted since 2006? They said, absolutely. That's why we want you here. And I guess the rest is history. So it's been great.
Yeah, your team really seems to have very good chemistry. At least it appears that way when they do the final cut. Are there any favorite episodes in the past year that you look back fondly where the data was really strong?
Absolutely. I would have to say probably in the second season, Fort Stanton, the episode's called Proof of Afterlife. We had the most credible witnesses I probably have ever worked with in my time investigating the paranormal. These are state park rangers, people that are not only scrutinized psychologically by their own profession, but are drug tested, things of that nature. I know that's something we have to look into. I know it sounds terrible, but I mean, we have to look into these people because sometimes people can be mixing medication, abusing alcohol, doing drugs, things like that. These were probably the most credible eyewitnesses that I've ever seen. And that was the moment I brought in the EMCCD camera, the electron multiplying camera, and had this amazing breakthrough where in this federal tuberculosis hospital on the grounds of Fort Stanton, we collected what is clearly a photon event, but somehow shapes itself and manifests itself as a humanoid-shaped figure. Oh. And that's something I've had looked at by multiple scientific consultants, and no one really has an explanation for it. So to me, that was a moment that is huge. And unfortunately, I think it was very underplayed on the episode, unfortunately. You go out there, you're filming a TV show, and you actually have this huge advancement in science, and it gets underplayed on TV. That's kind of but hey, you never know. You never know how this whole thing goes. But we had this huge advancement, this huge breakthrough. I can't wait to continue that research in the future.
Well, you get to write a book about it or advance it in other ways. But you're right. When you present your data to your third-party scientists, have you changed any mindsets with the data? Have you had any skeptics where they're gone, wow, you're really onto something? And have you changed any minds or made them less skeptical about the paranormal with what you bring to them?
Well, the beauty of this whole thing, Robert, is the fact that these skeptics, they aren't skeptics in what most people believed skeptics to be, right? So these are true scientists, true technical professionals. Most people, when they think of skeptics, these are people that go in not believing. A true skeptic is someone that is unbiased, someone that doesn't not believe, someone that's going in to try and find evidence if it exists. So you have a lot of people that go around throwing the terminology skeptic out that really aren't skeptics. These are non-believers. Therefore, they are biased going into an investigation or biased reviewing that data. So luckily, I have people around me that are true skeptics, people that are looking for evidence of some kind of phenomena. So when I present something like these photon events, it makes them go, wow, we have to look into this further. It's strange. We've never seen anything like it. So we have to analyze that. So that's the beauty of it. Because a lot of people that go around calling themselves skeptics really aren't skeptics. They're totally biased people that are non-believers.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. Going back, let's go back to your APRA days, your American Paranormal Research Association, and those 200 locations. First off, who is usually on your team when you go to investigate? I mean, some places have a psychic and a tech person, and then an investigator. When you go to investigate, typically with your group, what are the members basically? What do they do?
Well, we're very unconventional, I guess, in the sense of traditional, quote unquote, traditional paranormal researchers. So we go in and we really look at experiments in a location, right? We not only listen to the eyewitness testimony, which a lot of times can be thrown out, just like it is in a courtroom, right? Eyewitness testimony cannot be really trustworthy a lot of the times. So it's more about the history associated with the location, something I call the formula of a haunting. So I'm looking for a location that has this makeup of what we would think to be a haunted place. And so I bring in my members of the association that are from all walks of life. We're talking people that are spiritual, scientific, sometimes psychic, whatever it may be. So that always changes according to a location. And we've conducted so many different experiments. We've done psychological testing. We've done psychic impressions. We've done automatic writing. We've done Ouija boards, seances, everything. We've tried everything. Because if we didn't try all this...
Have you done the Estes method? Have you tried? I know Sam Baltrus has been using that lately.
We have.
Have you ever tried the Estes method?
We have. We tried that back in, I think it was 2011. We tried that at a location called the Bastille, the Kings County Jail. And we tried that in 2011. So we try everything. You know what I mean? If we didn't try everything, we wouldn't be open-minded enough to be scientific in nature. Because as soon as we start to close ourselves off to these different ideologies and different methodologies, we would be biased, right? So we have to look into all of it. And if we don't look into all of it and we don't try to collect data associated with that or trying to find empirical evidence associated with that, we're biased. So we're open to anything. So each investigation is evolving. Each investigation has different members and different people associated with it.
So in these investigations that you did with APRA, not to generalize, but in which do you think is the most haunted? Hospitals, prisons, or cemeteries? They could be different type of hauntings. You never know. There could be more violent hauntings in a prison, I guess. I don't know. But is there like one type of location that has a similar type of haunting and is pretty much a go-to?
I don't think there's really one location per se that has more activity than the other or more haunted than the other. But I will say this, that it goes back to this term I've used before, the formula of a haunting, where we're starting to see a correlation, a pattern associated with these locations where we look at the environmental conditions, temperature, pressure, humidity, all of these different environmental factors, and we're collecting these things we can't explain, right? We collect what we consider to be EVP, electronic voice phenomena. We have that tested by an audio engineer. They break that down through a spectrum analysis. Is it a stray radio frequency? Is it a stray cell phone frequency? Is it something man-made? And we're starting to see that there's a pattern here, that there are things we cannot explain in certain locations, say prisons, say mental hospitals, say hospitals, Victorian homes, murder locations, things like that. We're starting to see a common pattern where there's something going on. What is it? We're not quite sure, but it's something we have to look into further.
Now, what about the time of day for hauntings? For example, evening versus the day. Have you found, is there any correlation between the moon or the phase of the moon with paranormal activity?
Absolutely. It's something that really plays into the whole effect of a haunting, if you will. Most people aren't looking at these things, right? They are not looking at the fact that there are extreme environmental conditions associated with this, right? So if we go into a location, we have to be recording on a timeline or a time code the entire time we're there. All environmental conditions need to be observed and collected and data logged. And that's something we have to look into. So yes, I've seen a pattern. Yes, I've seen a correlation between these things. And I hope that the field picks that up, because going into a place with a spirit box, turning on your Facebook Live and filming each other is not research. Go in there, record empirical evidence. That's how we will advance. It's one thing being a paratourist. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to go out there and investigate a location, say Waverly Hills,
Yep.
You want to go to Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, you want to go to Eastern State Penitentiary, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you are a serious paranormal investigator, or what you call a paranormal investigator, you have to evolve. You have to put yourself into a methodology, a protocol, and some kind of ethics. If not, we're going to be stale.
Now, have you ever had a ghost experience or seen an apparition yourself?
I've had a few experiences I can't explain, but to me, it doesn't mean anything if I didn't collect it. If I have no data associated with it, it doesn't mean anything to me. But I will say that I was at the Heritage Junction Park in Santa Clarita, California, at a place called the Newhall Ranch House. And I was standing there and I heard very clearly, I was the only one in the building, very secure place. I knew that there was no one else there. I was standing there looking out the window and I heard a woman's voice right next to my ear, clear as day. Why don't you go outside? So that to me, unbelievable. Because again, I didn't have a recording. I have no proof to back it up. It's a pure personal experience. But to me, that's something I'll never forget and something that's unbelievable. So we'll see. To me, it's all about collecting data and empirical evidence. So that's really key.
Can you give us one or two creepy places out of the 200 that you've been that really stays with you, that comes back and you think about often in your 15 years that you've been doing this?
The McConaughey Estate in San Lorenzo, California, a place I've been investigating for over a decade. There's something about that place. I can't explain it. We've gone in there with Dr. Harry Clore. This guy is the only person in history to receive 2 PhDs simultaneously in any discipline. This guy is a living, breathing science icon. This guy has more credentials than Stephen Hawking and Einstein. And he came in there with us, and we cannot explain that place. There's been so many people affected, so much data. We have photo proof, video proof, audio data, things that have been tested by other industries that we cannot explain. We cannot find a natural explanation to these things happening there.
When you say affected, can you tell us what you mean by affected? That they pushed? Do they have marks appear on them? Do they just have a queasy feeling? How are they affected?
Well, the main thing that we've seen, the subjects that we've had in there are mainly women around the age of 18 to younger that are affected to the point where they become physically sick. And some of them are even physically sick where they throw up, or affected in that capacity. And all of them, which are independent, don't know each other, are there during different times of the year, say that they've seen an old man, a premonition, if you will, in their mind, and they become physically sick. And that's something that I have to look into. To me, I'm very skeptical of that. I don't know what that means, but it's been a common occurrence. It's happened many times. And so for us, we thought it might have been natural infrasound, right?
Yeah.
Is there some natural infrasound making these people feel this way? Are these people susceptible to this natural infrasound? We tested that and it was inconclusive. So that means that there's something else going on there. We've even tested the wallpaper for fungus.
Yeah.
Is there a way that maybe this wallpaper, this Victorian wallpaper, which a lot of times had poisonous material associated with it, is that messing with these people? And no, we can't find an explanation. That's why over a decade now, we've been looking into it. And I can't wait to get back into that.
That's great. Wow. So after 200 investigations, I keep saying that number, sorry. Do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in the afterlife, or is the jury still out?
Jury's still out. I've had instances where I think that there's been very strange things that have happened I can't explain, but I have no idea what the hell is going on. And that's what, pushes my research forward and something that drives my passion. If I didn't have that, I don't think I would continue. I would move on to something else. But that to me is my driving force. I think that there's something going on out there. Is it life after death? Is it something else? I don't know, and I can't wait to look into it further.
Yeah, I hope you find out before I pass. I mean, I'm like in my 50s, but I'm hoping you get it in the next 20 years. Not to put pressure on you. On the tech side, if you had $1,000 burning in your pocket, just got a bonus or whatever, and you were just getting started in ghost hunting equipment, what are 1, 2, or 3 pieces of equipment that you would recommend to someone who wanted to be serious about it, at least, or at least try to be serious about their ghost hunting in terms of gathering data?
Right. Right. Well, there's one device out there that's like the Swiss Army knife of the paranormal. That would be the EDI Plus meter. That is not only going to data log a lot of information for you, but it's going to give you humidity, pressure, temperature, EMF, vibration, all of these things, not only recorded to a SD card where you can later analyze that data, but it's going to give you the environmental conditions associated with the location, which is very important for this field. Because if we don't start to document all of these things, we will never, ever, ever be taken seriously. Like I said earlier in the show, you cannot go into a location with your SLS camera and your SB7 spirit box, whatever it may be, your ITC bullshit, and expect to be taken seriously. That's not how it's going to work. So this device itself is going to give you factual data and maybe empirical evidence. Audio recorder is the highest recording possibility possible, the highest bit rate, the best of the best, a Zoom recorder. So a EDI Plus and a Zoom recorder, whatever it may be, Tascam, whatever model you want, with the highest bit rate possible, the most information associated with that audio recording possible, is going to give you way more information than these other garage-made, garage tech devices that are plaguing the field at the moment.
Well, I got to tell you, kudos to you for remaining true to yourself and your mission and your vision for all this time. I do want to ask, have you ever had any, since your brother's passed, have any psychics ever said anything, brought it up that was kind of like, oh, that's weird. How did they know that? Or have you ever felt any presence or any connections when you're at any of your locations or even alone in a hotel room?
You know, it's funny because like I've had so many times I've been across the country and I've had psychics, which I've never met before. I'm not consulting them, that show up out of nowhere and start to tell me a very common theme associated with these other psychics where they say that there's 2 men around you. These people are protecting you. And they start to break that down that they are my brothers. So is that something that's credible? Possibly. I take it with a grain of salt, obviously. Not that I don't discount psychics. I think that there are people out there that do have another sense that should be looked into. But that's probably the closest thing to that question you've asked. And there's been a lot of people around the country that have approached me about that. And it's something I do take into account.
You're very scientific minded, and Hollywood, of course, certainly fabricates things. But is there one paranormal film that you've seen that you really enjoy?
The Changeling, probably.
Oh, really? I may have to watch that.
Yeah, The Changeling. I love that film. You know, George C. Scott is amazing. That to me, I know it's probably heavily fabricated, but that to me is more realistic. You know what I mean? It's not like there's a bunch of paranormal investigators showing up out of nowhere and doing these crazy things, but I don't know, that movie always affected me in a way. So The Changeling, I would say, probably.
That's a classic. Great. All right. Well, tell us about, so look, we're going to repeat it again. Your film, Cemetery Park, is showing at the Wicked Virtual Film Fest, and that can be found on Sam Baltrusis' website, paranormalrewind.com. But also, where else can we follow? Besides watching you on Ghost Hunters, where else can we follow you? Your website? Do you have a YouTube channel?
Yeah, you can follow me at brandonjalvis.com. That's my official website. You can find anything I do there. Also, cemeteryparkfilm.com. And I'm all across social media. Brandon Alvis, Brandon J. Alvis. You can find me across all social media. But my official website, Brandon J. Alvis, is where you can find everything.
Cool. Well, look, keep doing what you're doing, man. I hope you make some more films. I'm looking forward to seeing your film Cemetery Park at the film festival. And thank you so much for taking time to be with me today.
Not a problem. Thank you, Robert.
You've been listening to the Afraid of Nothing podcast. Please subscribe and like us on Facebook. Until next time, stay scared.
Hey, you're still here? Great. Then why not listen to another episode? Visit afraidofnothingpodcast.com to peruse all the shows. That's afraidofnothingpodcast.com. And while you're there, click the coffee cup icon to buy me a coffee and leave a review. I'll give you a shout-out in an upcoming episode, and the world will know how swell you are.